What is going on, y'all? I'm Cam Best. The devs at Marvel Snap have buffed probably the worst card in the game. They have changed it entirely, and it might not even be the most impactful thing they have changed with this patch. Let's go. Snowguard has been long derided as probably the worst card to ever spend tokens on this side of Howard the Duck, and frankly, for good reason, because this card was not doing anything that, especially after Legion came out, wasn't already being done better. So they've gone back to the drawing board, and their new design for Snowguard, instead of changing in your hand, it will add the Hawk and Bear Auroras to your hand. Yes, this works with Collector. The Hawk Aurora, 2 cost, 3 power, added to your hand after you play Snowguard, ignores every location. All of them. And that includes Limbo. So, for example, you can ignore every location until the end of the turn or the end of the game. That means you can play this card to turn off Limbo on turn 5 or on turn 6. It will go until the end of the next turn and start as soon as you play the card. So there's just a ton of wacky stuff you can get up to with this. Honestly, this is half of the reason that a card like Legion is good, is being able to reduce the variance in the game, allowing you one-sidedly to take advantage of it while your opponent cannot. This is a big deal. The Bear Aurora looks like it might be the less likely to be used of the two, but it can be used to solid effect. Again, it's like the other half of Legion. You know, people like to do Legion on the squirrel locations to really clog people up. You can do that with this on a little bit of a smaller scale. And honestly, I keep coming back to the Legion comparison when talking about this card. Legion is good because Marvel Snap is fundamentally built around location variance. So worse players can beat better players when they get locations that are advantageous to them. Now, a card like Snowguard and a card like Legion make you able to control this a lot more than you otherwise would be able to do. And this is, I think, just an absolutely stellar card now. This is, the new Snowguard is, I mean, it's 1 cost Legion. Obviously, you know, there's some downsides. You have to like invest extra energy to actually get the real effects, but there's also some upsides. It's a 1 cost card that adds 2 cards that you can play on curve to your hand. I mean, that's just crazy on its own. Just a 1 cost card that adds 2 cards to your hand, works with Collector, works with Devil Dinosaur. Outstanding, outstanding cards, and they're good. Like, this is a really big deal, and I can tell you it could not have happened soon enough. With Snowguard showing up in the Alioth Spotlight caches, this is an absolutely phenomenal change, a phenomenal time for them to make this change, and I am, for once in my life, I can say the sentence, I'm really excited to play with Snowguard. There are still more insane changes coming up, and this one is a much-needed nerf to the Brood Absorbing Man deck. Of course, the play pattern with that deck has been Forge into Brood into Absorbing Man, so your Broods are 5, your Absorbing Man Broods are 5. You are creating an enormous amount of power for a very small amount of energy. You're ending up with like 31 power for 9 energy. That's pretty ridiculous when you pull it off, and knocking the top off Absorbing Man here, bringing him down to being a 4/4 instead of a 4/5 should help to mitigate that deck's ability to dominate the metagame. Now, why do I think this is going to be so impactful? Because it's not actually a nerf of 1 power, it's kind of a nerf of 3 power. And now you have to pay a little bit more of a cost for using those 3 board spaces, right? Like 12 using 3 spaces is pretty eminently beatable. A lot of decks are going to be able to go tall over that, and more decks than previously were able to go tall are now going to be able to do so. So do keep in mind, if you're just going to jam Brood abs, I mean, there are going to be people who are going to be prepared for you. Almost every Shuri play is now going to go over the top of this, for sure. This one's kind of nuts. They have removed the ability to draw cards from the Soul Stone. I have long been of the opinion that draw a card in addition to an effect is arguably the strongest thing you can put on a card in Marvel Snap. And so taking it off, I think, is a much bigger nerf than they intend. Their thought process says, you know, we think Thanos is still going to be pretty good. And I do think there are still reasons to play Thanos in the future. So one of the things I've been cooking up has been, you know, we want a Time Stone on 3 into Professor X, play a dinosaur on 5, Eliath the dinosaur lane. We have won the Professor X lane. We have won the dinosaur lane. That does seem super toxic, right? And Thanos is what enables that to happen. I don't necessarily know if a deck like that is why they felt the need to preemptively nerf the Soul Stone, but I do get the sense that it might be a deck that gets some additional tools over the course of the season, and hitting it now is not the worst thing. I just think this might be a little bit more than they intended. In their dev notes, they mentioned they still expect to see Thanos around, and I gotta say, increasing the amount of just absolute dud hands that this deck has is actually going to be a problem. It's going to make the deck a lot more skill testing, right? Because outside of seeing the Mind Stone early, this was kind of the one you wanted to see, and it was because it drew a card and you likely weren't going to need it later, right? You want to save the Space Stone for when you can really get some value out of it. You want to save the Time Stone, usually for turn 3 to scam with a 5-cost card, right? But you don't want to save the Soul Stone, which made it very good to play on 1. It was your next best stone to the Mind Stone, which was, of course, very broken. And now, I think it's arguably the worst one. Down there with Power Stone, everyone already hates seeing Power Stone on 1. Now they're going to hate seeing Soul Stone on 1. I'm not saying this kills the Thanos deck, but as a deck that likes to sort of roll downhill, it's a bigger nerf than it looks like at first glance. A disruptive card getting a nerf. Stop me if you've heard this before. Spider-Ham is going to be nerfed, and now we'll read that the leftmost card in your hand will be the one targeted by Spider-Ham, not the most expensive. It is worth noting, leftmost is the one that's been in your hand the longest. It's the one that has been in your hand the longest amount of time. Generally speaking, it will still be hitting higher cost cards, or at least cards that you have not found occasion to play yet. So they managed to keep a little bit of the spirit intact here by saying it was the leftmost card, but a little bit of the power is definitely gone here. Always being sure to hit a card like, say, Living Tribunal is unbelievably powerful. It's a very good card in a lot of different contexts. Now, I still think it's probably a pretty solid hand disruption tool, but it's no longer as free as it was. It's no longer the kind of card that you just like throw in there and it's like, don't even think about it anymore. And in addition, the deck where it was just the card where you would just throw in there and not even think about it anymore, that deck was mostly Darkhawk, and that is on downswing already. So I'm interested to see what new homes Spider-Ham finds. If you have any ideas for new homes for Spider-Man, for Spider-Ham, I'm leaving that in, do let me know in the comments. Finally, a dangerous change, in my opinion. Blade is now becoming targeted discard. He is going to hit the rightmost card in your hand always, and I think this could be a big deal. Targeted discard is really important to decks like Hela. They are now able to include this card for free, and any kind of deck that can really make things move around in their hand, make sure that they hit the cards they want. A deck full of cheap cards can also use this, so you get your targeted discard on your Swarm, for example. I'm pretty excited to see what this card ends up doing, and I expect that it will be something relatively powerful. After the change to Dakin, I mean, after last season with Dakin coming out, Silver Samurai, it's not really like a change to Dakin per se, it's a change to discard, right? This is notable, right? So, for example, with Dakin, you know, you play the Dakin, you play the Blade, Dakin's always going to get the Muramasa Shard every single time if that's your turn 4, because that is going into the rightmost spot in your hand. And that's just the beginning of sort of hand manipulation stuff that you can do with this card. It is quite powerful. It is very interesting, and I am looking forward to see what sort of mishmash, hodgepodge, discard, low curve decks we can come up with, because, I mean, maybe we can get the Marvel Snap version of Zoo Warlock or something going on in here. I'm very excited to see this card. When it was random discard, it was just the kind of thing you could not abide. As a targeted discard, there is now going to be a lot of skill to your sequencing with it in discard decks. I'm very excited for this one. All right, y'all, that's going to be it from me for today. What do you think about these changes? I'm in a glass case of emotion here. Nerfing Thanos hurts me. Buffing Blade makes me feel very happy, and the Snowguard buff is just insane. That card is so awesome right now, and I don't think I've ever played it ever. And now I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to see if it manages to make it into some decks, breaking Legion's stranglehold on the location changing meta. I'm glad there's more counterplay to people going Magic Cosmo now. Like, this is just, it's so well timed too. I mean, I think it is the change I'm most excited about in this patch, but like, there are so many other crazy ones. This is a patch full of just wild stuff. So let me know in the comments what your favorite one was, or if you were excited or disappointed. I've noticed a lot more people have been disappointed, like more disappointed than I have, I think, recently. Like, I've been like, whoa, this is crazy. And a lot of people are like, well, I can't really do anything with this. They buffed a card that I don't really have with Snowguard, right? Things like that. So do try to keep me in check if you think I'm off base on something. I read every comment, so I do want to know your opinion. I don't want to become out of touch, if you know what I mean. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Y'all, I've been Cam Best. I will see you in the next one. Remember to like and subscribe. Peace.